Part 2 of the Halloween event is going to be coming up soon in Pokémon GO, and in this video we're going to be going over everything you need to know. So first of all, this event is going to be taking place from October 28th to November 3rd, from 10 AM to 8 PM local time. Now as far as the bonuses go, we're going to continue to have 2x catch candy. We're also going to have the increased chance to receive extra large candy for nice throws or better if you're level 31 or higher. And then specifically on October 31st, you're going to have a small chance to get rare extra large candy as well as rare candy when you catch Pokemon with costumes. Last year this did have a terrible drop rate though, so I wouldn't really expect that much. Now, we also had increased shiny odds for Umbreon in raids and Zorua in the wild, but we're also going to have increased shiny odds for more Pokemon during this part of the event as well. So additionally in raids, we're going to have increased shiny odds for Gengar, Drifblim, Froakie, and Rowlet, and then we're also going to have increased shiny odds in the egg pool for 7km eggs for Vulpix, Pichu, Froakie, and Rowlet as well. We're also going to have the Lavender Town music playing in the background if you guys actually have your sound on. Most people probably don't play this game with the sound on, but you might want to turn it on during this event for that extra theme. And then finally, like usual, we're going to have showcases featured during this event. These can get you some really good items in game like incubators, lucky eggs, star pieces, incense, and lure modules if you do end up placing first or second. So basically when it comes down to it, it's important to hold on to certain Pokemon during this event, especially your double extra large variants for the best chance at winning. Now with that out of the way, let's go over the debut Pokemon that are going to be featured during this event, starting off with Froakie in its costume and Rowlet in its costume. So typically when costume Pokemon are released in their base stage forms, you can't actually evolve them until like the next year or something like that. That being said though, this doesn't seem to be the case for these two Pokemon. It does look like you can actually evolve them all the way up to their final evolutions, but that doesn't mean that you should evolve them right now, and let me explain why. So Rowlet actually had a calm day earlier this year in January, and Froakie had a calm day last year in August, which means that they both qualify for the requirements to evolve during December calm day in order to get their exclusive movesets for free. Rowlet when evolved into Decidueye is going to get Frenzy Plant, and Froakie when evolved into Greninja is going to get Hydro Cannon. If you do plan on using these Pokemon in PvP or even as raid attackers, you will definitely want to have these movesets. Now both of these Pokemon are going to be featured in the upcoming Spotlight Hour for this week, so I'll make sure to go over them in more detail when we cover that. Now we do actually have one more Pokemon debuting during this event as well, and that is going to be from October 31st to November 3rd, specifically Gigantamax Gengar, which is going to be the 4th Gigantamax Pokemon released in Pokemon GO. So the initial launch of Gigantamax Pokemon this past weekend was honestly really rough, and I do understand if you're not really that interested in this at all, or if your community isn't that large enough to even attempt this. That being said though, I do know that some of you guys out there are still determined and willing to do what it takes to get this done. So we're going to talk about this more in detail later, but again, if you just want to skip past it, there are going to be timestamps down below. Next up, let's go over the wild encounters for this event. So first of all, we're going to have Vulpix wearing a costume, Shuppet, Piplup wearing a costume which can't actually evolve, Woobat, Zorua which is going to be shiny boosted, Froakie wearing a costume, Inkay, Phantump, Pumpkaboo wearing a costume, and then finally Rowlet wearing a costume. And then for the rare encounter, we're going to actually have Pikachu with a witch hat costume, which honestly was featured quite commonly during past Halloween events, so it's kind of weird to see this Pokemon be a rare spawn. Now when it comes down to field research, we're also going to have a few different Pokemon featured as well. The first one is going to be Pikachu in a witch hat, the second one is going to be Vulpix in a costume, then Piplup in a costume, Froakie and Rowlet both in costumes, Morpeko, and then Spiritomb is going to be the rare encounter from this, which honestly for Morpeko, I believe it was the Win 2 raids task, and then for Spiritomb it's going to be the Win 3 raids task. So both of those Pokemon are actually kind of gate-kept behind doing raid battles, which honestly, I mean, I'm not that surprised, but it is a little bit frustrating when you really think about it, because those Pokemon are probably the rarest to get during this event, and of course you have to do raid battles to actually get them done. Now on top of that though, we're also going to have Mega Energy tasks available for Gengar, Houndoom, Sableye, Bayonet, and Absol, and based on part 1 of the event, these are going to award you 25 energy per task. And it's actually a lot more generous than I had originally anticipated, so make sure to farm these as much as possible. Once you actually have enough energy to Mega Evolve them for the first time, after that you can just walk them as your buddy to earn more energy that way. Now like I mentioned earlier, we also have special 7km eggs, which are basically the same Pokemon that I already mentioned that are going to be shiny boosted. Now when it comes down to it guys, these eggs aren't really that special, like outside of the fact that they're supposedly shiny boosted opposed to if you found them in the wild. The only Pokemon that can't be found in the wild from this egg pool is going to be Pichu with the witch hat. But for those of you that actually want to get these 7km eggs and you're like newer and you don't really understand how that works, so you can get 7km eggs from opening gifts from your friends, you do have a chance to get one, but you have to have an open egg slot available. If you don't, you can't actually get them. But once again, I really wouldn't recommend this considering that these Pokemon are available in the wild and from field research. Speaking of research though, let's go over the free timed research available, which is basically the same as part 1. It's going to be focused on Spiritomb and its 108 spirits. This timed research is going to be available until the end of the event on November 3rd, so if you guys haven't actually claimed your encounters, make sure to do that during this part of the event. The next portion of the video is going to feel a bit repetitive since we kind of went over this during part 1, but I'll go over it once again, and that is going to be for the timed research available. So we actually have 2 different timed research. One's going to be $5, one's going to be $2. We'll go over the $5 one first, which in my opinion is definitely worth it, especially if you're like a newer or returning player. So basically, as far as the bonuses go, instead of 2 times catch candy, it's going to upgrade you to 3 times catch candy. Now on top of that, you're also going to get a more Peko avatar item of choice, so either the hangry mode or the full belly mode. You can't actually get both costumes to my knowledge. Maybe you can, I haven't actually bought this, so I don't really know for sure, but I believe it's just one or the other. And then you're also going to get encounters with Spiritomb, Pikachu with the witch hat, Froakie in a costume, Rowlet in a costume, and then finally more Peko. So basically when it comes down to this ticket in terms of its value, I mean upgrading to 3 times catch candy is honestly amazing. Pretty much when you combine it with pineapple berries or even silver pineapple berries and an active mega evolution, like the candy canes are going to be insane. And I'm sure for those of you guys who actually purchased this during the start of the part 1 of the event, you probably got some amazing gains by itself. But if you don't want to buy it, that's honestly okay too. Like I didn't get this ticket obviously because I'm free to play. But, you know, the gains were still pretty awesome, so at the end of the day, it's going to be even better if you get it, but if you don't, that's okay as well. Now, we also have the timed research available for $2, which is basically just costume Pokemon, like you're going to get Pikachu in a costume, Vulpix, Gengar, Piplup, Drifblim, Froakie, Pumpkaboo, and Rowlet, and that's pretty much it. So, for most players out there, this isn't really worth it because you can get most of these Pokemon from the wild or from field research, but for shiny hunters, they might want to buy this. I mean, honestly, that's just totally up to them. Both of these tickets can be gifted though, so I mean, if it comes down to, you know, gifting one of these to your friends, I wouldn't really recommend the second ticket, but the first ticket for 3 times catch candy could be really good for newer or returning players. Like the compound effect of 3 times catch candy is literally insane. Next up, let's take a look at the raid battles, which are going to be different than part 1 of the event. So first of all, let's go over the lower tier raids. In 1-star raids, you're going to have Pikachu with a costume, Froakie with a costume, and then finally Rowlet with a costume. Now when it comes down to 3-star raids though, you're going to have access to Gengar with a costume, which is exclusive from raid battles. You can't actually get this costume any other way. Umbreon is going to be the only Pokemon that carries over from part 1 of the event, but it won't be in costume, it's just shiny boosted as well, which is really good if you end up getting like the Hundo, because that's going to be good for Ultra League. And then finally we have Drifblim with a costume, which I think Drifblim was featured during part 1 of the event, but it didn't have a costume, so kind of weird in my opinion, but this is also going to be shiny boosted, so yeah, every single one of these Pokemon from 3-star raids will be shiny boosted. Also, Froakie and Rowlet from the 1-star raids will be shiny boosted in raids, so maybe if you guys are shiny hunters, then you might want to do those 1-star raids, but again guys, I would just hunt them from the wild. You don't really need to spend money on this stuff. Now following that, let's go over the more interesting raids, the legendary and mega raids. So we're going to have Darkrai available from October 28th to November 4th, one day after this event ends for some reason. I'm not really sure why. I figured the rotation would end on November 3rd, but it's going to end on November 4th for some reason. So there have been a lot of Pokemon that have unfortunately outranked Darkrai over the years as a dark type attacker, and on top of that, we're not going to be seeing the release of its signature moveset, Dark Void, which would have made it honestly a lot better in the meta, but it seems like Niantic is saving that for maybe next year. I'm not really sure. A lot of us have been anticipating Dark Void for many years now, and at this point, guys, I don't know. I just don't think it's coming. Maybe next year, who knows. Anyways though, Darkrai is still worth focusing on for the main appeal of its elusive shiny, which can only be caught through raid battles. And for those of you who don't know, Darkrai can't actually be traded because it's technically a mythical Pokemon, so this is the only way to get it. I've actually struck out every single year on the Darkrai shiny, so I'm really hoping that I can actually finally get it this year. Now speaking of which, I think the best time to potentially get a shiny Darkrai is going to be during the Darkrai raid hour on October 30th. This raid hour is going to be taking place from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. local time, so keep that in mind. And for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with how these kind of work, basically most gyms around you are going to have Darkrai appearing on them, and the raids are also going to reset after about 30 minutes, which means you can pretty much hit the same gyms again at the half-hour mark, which is really convenient if you only have like a few gyms around you. And on top of that, guys, if you're not really that familiar with your local Pokemon Go community, I would strongly recommend checking Campfire for any local meetups before this event. And once again, Darkrai is definitely worth hunting right now. Like even without Dark Void, we can always Elite TM Dark Void in the future if you do end up getting the Hundo, which in my case, I actually do have the Hundo Darkrai, and that's probably what I'm going to do. Now following that, let's take a look at the Mega Pokemon that's going to be featured during this event. Honestly, not as good as Part 1, which we had Mega Sableye, and that was honestly the perfect Pokemon for the Halloween event. But this Pokemon is going to be Mega Bayonet, and it's going to be available from the same time period, October 28th to November 4th. Now with that being said, this is technically the second best Ghost-type Mega in the game, behind Mega Gengar. So if you already have Mega Gengar, I wouldn't really worry about this Pokemon outside of just getting it for the Mega Pokedex entry. Once again, Mega Gengar Energy is going to be available from Field Research during this event, so as I mentioned earlier, I would recommend focusing on that. But if you're unable to actually get enough of that, then Mega Bayonet might actually be a good secondary option. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing more than 2 of these raids, because that's basically all the energy that you would need, and then you can just walk it from there. And if you decide to actually power this up as a Ghost-type raid attacker, I wouldn't go past level 30. You do want to eventually hold on to your resources for Mega Gengar, and then eventually max that Pokemon out once you get a good IV spread plus the energy for it. And when it comes out to Mega Bayonet, I mean, it's pretty much more of a temporary attacker. The ideal moveset you want to have on it is going to be the same as Gengar though, Shadow Claw plus Shadow Ball. Next up, let's take a look at Max Battles. So basically after the announcement of Gigantamax Pokemon and 6-star Max Battles, it did kind of make rating the 1 and 3-star Max Battles sort of pointless, because the only way to really Gigantamax them is by catching them specifically for Max Battles. We can't actually use Max Soup because that hasn't been released in game, at least not yet. I'm hopeful that we may get that in the future. But still, when it comes down to meta-relevant Pokemon, I still think these are actually worth doing, like specifically the 1-star and 3-star raids, because the IV floor is going to be 10-10-10, which basically gives you a much better chance at getting something like 90% IV or higher, and if not, you can always mirror trade them for a chance at a lucky Pokemon, which is going to cost you half the Stardust to power up, which is super good. So when convenient, I do think these max battles are still a great way to actually farm some easy experience and rewards throughout the day. And then when it comes down to Gigantamax Pokemon, well, I do have my opinions on that, especially after the most recent raid weekend, but we'll talk about that later. So first of all, let's go over the 1-star max battles available right now, and then we'll take a look at Gigantamax Gengar to wrap this up. So we have Dynamax Ghastly, right? So Dynamax Ghastly and Gigantamax Gengar. Should you still do Dynamax Ghastly? Yes, you should definitely do Dynamax Ghastly because you need to have counters for Gigantamax Gengar. If there's anything I learned from this past weekend, a lot of players don't even have the proper counters or the evolved forms of those counters. Now you don't need to power up these Pokemon, you don't have to give them max moves, but you should at the very least evolve them all the way up to their final stage forms. Guys, we have 2x catch candy right now during this event. There is literally no excuse to not get the evolved forms of these Pokemon. It's totally possible. Now on top of that too, for Ghastly, you can actually trade this Pokemon, like mirror trade it with a friend, and you only have to spend 25 candy to evolve it to Haunter, and the evolution to Gengar is going to be free, so you literally have 0 reasons and 0 excuses to not get this Pokemon evolved all the way up to Gengar. 75 candy is all that you need, and you can easily get that. Just Pineapple Berry every single Dynamax Ghastly you see during this week. You should totally build up enough candy for that. Mirror trade them, you know, keep them in the power spots after you finish the raid battles to get even more candy. There are so many ways to get candy in this game. You can even have an active Mega Evolution, right? That's going to give you more candy as well. So when it comes down to it, I kind of understand for the Kanto starters and stuff like that, maybe not getting all the evolution forms, but for Gengar, you literally have 0 excuses. And given how difficult these Gigantamax raids are, every little bit helps. Now we do also have the Dynamax Gen 8 starters available as well, so that's going to be Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble. These starters were just released in game not too long ago, and they actually haven't had their comm days yet, which means it's definitely worth hunting these right now for the chance at potential Hundo. Now personally speaking, I did actually get a Hundo Grookey, and I already have a good IV spread for Scorbunny, and then Sobble I'm still kind of working on, although I did actually get a lucky Sobble from just a random mirror trade, so that was really cool. Basically guys, I'm just kind of holding on to them until they get their comm days, and then we can get the exclusive movesets Frenzy Plant, Hydro Cannon, and Blast Burn respectively. And if we ever do get Max Soup in game, all these Pokemon can Gigantamax as well, so getting good IVs in them now could pay off in the future. Now in 3-star max battles, we have Dynamax Phalanx, which is the only fighting type Pokemon available as a Dynamax Pokemon. So if you want to be prepared for all the upcoming boss fights that potentially may be weak to fighting types, I would definitely make sure to grab at least 3 of these and then stop. Now this is actually a really difficult solo, but after the release of Dynamax Ghastly, I've heard players being able to solo it with 2 Dynamax Gengar and then 1 Dynamax Charizard, so that's a good strategy. I haven't actually tested it out myself because I've been saving my MP for the Gigantamax raids and, you know, didn't really focus on that too much, but if you don't want to do that, the duo is really easy. My recommendation for the duo is going to be 1 level 20 Charizard with Air Slash plus Overheat and 2 other evolved Pokemon at level 20. It doesn't really matter which ones, just make sure that your Charizard is going to be available for the Dynamax portion of the fight, because that's really important. But now with that being said, let's talk about the main Pokemon I really want to focus on here, Gigantamax Gengar, which once again is only going to be available from October 31st to November 3rd. Now compared to the Kanto starters that were Gigantamax forms, I'm going to imagine this is going to be easier, guys, and the reason for that is because Gengar is a glass cannon, which essentially boils down to it having high attack but low defense. Now it is difficult to say how much easier or difficult this raid boss is going to be, but I'm pretty sure it can't be as bad as the Kanto starters, right? I mean, I hope so. So players were actually failing those with full lobbies of 40 trainers, but to be fair, this does require many players to have at least evolved their Pokemon, and you know, a lot of players weren't even doing that. So for example, let's say people go in with like base stage attackers like Ghastly, that's really not going to help out that much, and you're going to get your Pokemon knocked out practically immediately. These are 6-star raid battles, guys, like they're meant to be difficult, they're not going to be easy. You have to actually do the bare minimum, which in this case is getting them all the way up to Gengar with the method that I recommended earlier. But once again, you do not have to spend your Stardust or power them up, you don't have to even give them their max moves if you don't want to. That does help though. To be fair, like giving them max heal and max guard does actually help in terms of a group effort, but you don't have to do this. Regardless of how this ends up playing out, I'm going to try to put together a good strategy video for you guys to actually, you know, get prepared for this upcoming weekend, you know, show it to your community members and hopefully they get prepared as well. This is very much a team effort. Like if people are not pulling their weight and even doing the bare minimum of just evolving their Pokemon, this is going to be really rough. Not to mention having the right moveset's also critically important. If you have the wrong moveset, that makes a big difference as well. Once again though, this Pokemon is going to be available for 4 days, which I think is definitely enough time, and hopefully it isn't going to be as difficult as the Gigantamax starters. Now following that, let's go over the special box bundles available in the web store. The first one is going to be called the Creepy Crate for $5. This is going to give you 3 remote raid passes, 1 premium raid pass, and then 1 max particle pack. The total savings here compared to the shop value is going to be 275 Pokecoins. For the second bundle, it's going to be called the Pumpkin Pack for $40. You're going to get 20 incubators and 20 super incubators, and the total value saved here is going to be 3,000 Pokecoins. And then finally, we're going to have the Boo Bundle for $100. You're going to get 3 remote raid passes, 3 max particle packs, 16 premium raid passes, 50 super incubators, and 50 regular incubators. The total savings here is going to be 10,000 Pokecoins, or basically $100. But with that being said, guys, if you're actually willing to spend $100 on this, it might actually just be worth going and buying the Pokecoin bundle instead, which is going to give you 15,500 Pokecoins. Niantic does actually offer really good deals to players at random in the shop, but it is going to be account specific. So when it comes down to it, for the players who are willing to spend this kind of money, I mean, this is a perspective I think you guys should be aware of. I mean, in terms of the box value, like, it does make sense, but also in terms of the Pokecoin value, and waiting for like a very specific deal in the shop. Like for example, some players have gotten the deal for like 99 raid passes for only like 7,000 Pokecoins. So basically you could, you know, spend $100, get 15,000 Pokecoins, and then just kind of buy that box twice. You would get 200 raid passes, which is easily worth the value. Now, to be fair though, it is going to be dependent on each account, so you may not get the good deal, you may get a good deal, it's totally random. But ultimately, when it comes down to buying these boxes, you get the best value if you actually see yourself playing this game for the long term, as they do actually come in handy during big events like the Wild Area, Go Tour, or Go Fest. And typically when we get events like that, we don't always get good box deals, so taking advantage of them ahead of time does seem to pay off for some players. Now before we actually get into the Spotlight Hour as well as the best Pokemon to focus on during this event, I want to quickly go over PvP IVs for those of you guys who are a little bit unfamiliar with how this works. So basically you want to have low attack IVs and high defense and high stamina IVs. And the reason for this is because it allows you to level up your Pokemon the most before it hits the CP limit for the Great League or the Ultra League. Now with that being said, there are going to be some exceptions to this because the max CP does not reach that limit, in which case you would just want to have the best IVs possible, which is typically the Hundo. Now as far as this video goes, we're going to be mainly focused on the 0-15-15 IV spread as the general one to aim for, and if you do want to quickly pull up good IVs for Great League and Ultra League, you can use this search string on screen right now. Anyways though, let's go over the Spotlight Hour now for Froakie and Rowlet with both of their costumes. So on the second day of the event, we're going to have this combined Spotlight Hour featuring both of these Pokemon in their costume forms. It's honestly pretty rare for Niantic to do this with a brand new costume shiny, although they are going to be full odds from the wild. These Pokemon will be shiny boosted from raid battles as well as 7km eggs, and as far as the special bonus goes, it was 2x catch candy, but that's also the same as the event bonus, so this won't actually stack on top of each other, so we're not going to get like 4x catch candy, that would just be ridiculous. So basically, in other words, we have no special bonus for this one because it's just going to be the event bonus. Although with that being said, both of these Pokemon are meta relevant when evolved into their respective evolutions, so let's talk about that right now. So first of all, let's go over Froakie, which evolves into Greninja. This Pokemon has relevance in the Open Great League and Open Ultra League metas. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, you want to have Hydro Cannon on your Greninja when you evolve it, which again, you can get during December Calm Day, so I would recommend just kind of hunting for good IV spreads during this event, and then saving them for that event. Now on top of that, Greninja is also going to be a decent water type attacker to have for raid battles, and with the 2x catch candy event bonus, you can definitely acquire enough candy to actually evolve a few high level ones during December. Now as far as Rowlet goes, when evolved into Decidueye, this Pokemon also has relevance in the Open Great League and Ultra League metas, is also decently good in the raid/gym meta as a budget attacker, so pretty much for the same reasons as Greninja, I would just do the exact same thing, guys. You know, catch a few high level ones, focus on the candy gains, and then focus on getting 2 good IV spreads for Great League as well as Ultra League. Moving forward, let's go over the best Pokemon to focus on now during this event, excluding those 2 that I just went over. So first of all, we have Vulpix, which evolves into Ninetales. This Pokemon has relevance in the Open Great League and Ultra League metas. It's actually really good right now in the Open Ultra League 2, ranking at number 58. This does actually have an outlier spread too of 9-15-15, which means that if you were actually to get a 10-15-15 from field research or eggs, this would actually be a good IV spread for the Open Ultra League. We also have Shuppet, which evolves into Bayonet as a Mega Evolution, so it's a good way to actually get some extra candy on this Pokemon, maybe some extra large candy if you want to go that route. Honestly though, like, I would not power up this Pokemon past level 30. Level 30 should be the cap because you want to really focus on Mega Gengar when you eventually get the resources for that Pokemon. Now following that, we're going to have Zuru, which is going to be shiny boosted, continuing onward from the last event. This will be disguised as your buddy Pokemon, so if you do have like a shiny legendary, for example, and you see that Pokemon in the wild, just be aware, this is not going to be a shiny legendary just randomly appearing. I've actually seen quite a few people on Reddit actually use their Master Balls on this Pokemon, which is really tragic, so don't be that person. Following that, we're going to have Inkay, which evolves into Malamar. This Pokemon has incredibly good relevance right now in the Open Great League and Ultra League metas. It's within the top 20 in both of those metas right now, guys. It is extremely good to get during this event. We're going to have Phantup, which evolves into Trevenant. This has relevance in the Open Great League and Ultra League metas. This also benefits from a free trade evolution, which will save you 200 candy each time. And there's going to be tasks to evolve 3 Ghost-type Pokemon during this event, similar to Part 1. At least I'm pretty sure there is. I mean, they could change, but I doubt it would. And so mirror trading these Pokemon and saving them in like a search tag later can really help you out, which is what I did during Part 1. And I didn't have to spend that much candy evolving other random Ghost-type Pokemon. So this is a huge strategy, honestly. And the same could be said for Pumpkaboo, which evolves into Gourgeist. Pretty much the exact same thing as Trevenant. You know, just trade to evolve it, saves you 200 candy, and boom, you're good to go. Not to mention, Gourgeist and Pumpkaboo are both going to be costume forms during this event, and they have 4 different sizes, so for collectors out there, you might want to grab a few of these as well. Next up, let's talk about Morpeko, which has relevance in the Open Great League meta. You can get this from the Win 2 Raids task, which I mentioned earlier. So basically, the best strategy for casual players, in my opinion, would be to grab 3 of these quests, save them for Darkrai Raid Hour, and then you get them all done at once. And then boom, you have 3 more Pekko, you can mirror trade them with a friend for better IV spreads for the Open Great League, and now you're good to go. Now we do also have Ghastly, which evolves into Gengar, which has relevance as a raid attacker, a Mega Pokemon, and a Gigantamax Pokemon. So basically when it comes down to it, you're going to have 3 ways to get Gengar during this event, along with the Mega Energy available from field research tasks. So the first way is going to be from 3-star raid battles, right, with the costumed hat. This will be shiny boosted as well. The second way is going to be from Dynamax Ghastly Max battles, which you can do anywhere from like 3 to 4 of these a day, assuming you don't use your MP on anything else. And the third way is going to be Gigantamax Gengar, which I doubt most people are going to be able to get, so the second option, just doing regular Dynamax Ghastly Max battles, would be the best option for you. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, guys, Ghastly is one of the few Pokemon that benefits from a trade evolution candy discount. Now on top of that, we're also going to have Umbreon available in 3-star raids, which will be shiny boosted, and it's also going to be good if you end up getting the Hundo for the Open Ultra League. And then finally, we have Darkrai available in raids, which once again, you can only get this Pokemon from raid battles, you cannot trade it. Combined with the 2x catch candy bonus, or potentially the 3x catch candy bonus if you got the timed research ticket, this is going to be one of the best times to farm this Pokemon. Candy gains are going to be amazing. Now for any of the Pokemon that I mentioned that you're actually interested in, I want to remind you that we also have the current seasonal bonus of guaranteed extra large candy from trading Pokemon if you're level 31 or higher. So make sure to take advantage of that bonus every single day if possible. It is going to make a huge difference. Now on top of that, the other seasonal bonus that we're going to have available right now is going to be 1.5 times friendship experience, which is by far the best way to get experience in the game. So for anybody trying to reach level 40 or, get to level 50, this is going to be massive for you. So basically, a minimum, I would just make sure that you're opening up all of your gifts every single day to increase your friendship with people, send gifts out as often as possible, and once you're actually out of gifts, your buddy Pokemon will bring you 5 gifts, which usually happens about every 7 to 8 hours, which means you can get about 15 gifts for free every single day without even leaving your house. And one more tip I want to recommend for opening gifts is to hit the X button super quickly to skip the animation. This saves a ton of time when you're going through your daily 30. Now following that, let's take a look at the best Mega Evolution you guys want to have active during this event for candy bonuses. Now for this event, the main spawns are going to be Dark and Ghost type Pokemon, which pretty much makes Sableye the best option because it covers both of those typings. Now in terms of other options you guys can go for Mega Evolutions, you also have access to Gengar, Houndoom, Banette, Absol, and Tyranitar. If you have any of these Pokemon at Mega level 3 and you don't have Sableye there just yet, this might be a better consideration for you, as you will actually get more candy. But again, it depends on what you're actually focused on. So between a Ghost type and a Dark type Pokemon specifically, I would definitely recommend going with a Ghost type Mega over a Dark type Mega. But again, Mega Sableye is the best of both worlds here. Now on top of that, we also have the increased chance to get extra large candy if you get nice, great, or excellent throws, so if you guys do want to improve your catching efficiency, then check out this video next.